What's going on, NBA fans? It's your boy Haize here with another episode of NBA Central, the daily version of the show. And so, on today's episode, we're going to be talking about who is the best backcourt in the NBA so far this season. Historically, it's been, you kind of look at Steph Curry and Klay Thompson as the best backcourt, but I don't know if that's necessarily true anymore. We're going to break all that down right after this.
Thank you. The number one place for your daily basketball fix, NBA Central. Hosted by the one and only CEO Haize.
All right. So coming into the season, there were a couple of new backcourts that came together that people were excited to see. And that's Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell, and then Trae Young and DeJounte Murray, right? You add that into backcourts that have already been established here for a while, like Dame Lillard and Anthony Simons. You talk about Klay and Steph. But then you also have the young guns in Ja Morant and Desmond Bane, who've just been considerably on the rise for the last couple of seasons. And while I know Desmond Bane is now going to be out for a couple of weeks, so, this video comes when it comes, the question has now been made, like, who is the best backcourt in the NBA so far this season? And, one of the things that I always try to look at, right, is I always like to look at the both sides of the ball, right? It's easy just to say if you're just looking at kind of scoring-wise and things like that on what's the best backcourt. But I want to really look at both sides of the ball and having this conversation. So right off the top, Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, they just haven't had it this, specifically Klay Thompson hasn't really had it this season. Jordan Poole is really outclassing him as a starter so far. As a starter so far this season, Jordan Poole has averaged 28.7 points per game on 48% shooting overall from the field, 39% shooting from three, and 94% shooting from the free throw range. Which is completely outclassing his production off the bench, which is at 13.9 points per game and much worse shooting splits overall. Not much worse, but slightly worse. So, I'm eliminating for this conversation, which is something that I never thought I'd say, is Steph and Klay. I'm not really putting them in this conversation as the best backcourts in the NBA anymore. Well, again, so far this season, let me classify that. So far this season, as we know with the Warriors, one of the things with the Warriors is that they can always get going. So it's always, you always have to question, like, when are the Warriors going to decide to turn it on? And when they do turn it on, just how much are they going to be better than all the other competition? So, that remains to be seen if the Warriors turn it around, which they're playing much better here lately, rather than not. But, so looking at some of the best backcourts in the NBA, right? You have James Harden and Tyrese Maxey, which are a damn good backcourt. That team's playing okay, right? I'm not putting them on this list either. Steph and Klay, again, they've won titles together, things like this, but I just can't make a conversation for them with the way that they played this season when you combine that with the way that some of these other backcourts have played so far this season. Even looking at even looking at Chris Paul and Devin Booker. Again, a solid backcourt, a backcourt that's going to drop numbers on your head, but I'm not necessarily anymore looking at them as the best backcourt in the NBA. So these are the teams that I think have the best backcourt so far. Or I should say the best backcourts. I'm putting Desmond Bane and Ja Morant as the best backcourt in the NBA right now. When you look at them averaging over 50 points per game overall together, 47% shooting from the field, 43% shooting from three-point range. They're getting almost 11 rebounds together, 11 assists per game as well, and two steals per game. This is one of the backcourts that I think, when I look at the two-way, right, we know what they can do offensively, and the leap that Desmond Bane has taken, his growth is going to do wonders for that team that Desmond Bane has done so far this season. They're using him in more pick and rolls, playing through him a little bit more, which has then freed Ja Morant to do more things off ball. And Ja Morant, one of the things that have been the biggest question mark, if we have one for Ja Morant so far in his career, has been the jump shooting, which is tightening up as well. So far. So when just looking at this team and looking at the numbers, Ja Morant and Desmond Bane, to me, and the fact that they are also one of the youngest backcourts on this list and still have so much room to grow as players individually and together as they continue working together, we may be looking at the next great dominant backcourt for the next 5 to 8 years, right? Again, barring injury, anything like that, but this is a backcourt that you can bet on being 23 and 24 years old and already having this type of production, this type of chemistry together, and a team that steps up a little bit more when going. Listen, Ja Morant has needed a running mate. And not necessarily in the backcourt, but somebody who's going to help pick up some of that scoring load at times. And so far this season, Desmond Bane has been every bit of that. And so I have them as the best backcourt in the NBA. Next up, I have Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell, not averaging not that much less than points per game wise as Ja Morant and Desmond Bane at 52.7 points per game. They're also shooting the ball for about 47% from the field, 42% from three-point range. They're getting about 7 rebounds together, and then about 14 assists per game, and they're averaging almost 3 steals per game so far in their combination. This is a backcourt that we were slow to see it because Darius Garland not starting off the season, not healthy, but then coming in. The one thing with this team that I will say, they are still, and they're not as an effective team backcourt as some of the other backcourts. When you look at it, they sometimes take high volume of shots and don't hit it at necessarily the best percentages overall. They still get the results. Still, I do look at what a small backcourt can do when you're in a playoff series or you're in one of the more strategic coaches in the NBA. But as we know, they have one of the best front courts in the league as well, paired with them that help just make that team go so much better. So I was very low on the pairing of Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell before the season started, but you can't deny it. Seeing them play together, watch the way that they play together, just how they play off each other as well. They definitely have to be on that list as one of the best backcourts, and I have them as of right now, number 2. Now, number 3 that I have is Dame Lillard and Anthony Simons. Again, averaging over 50 points per game together, about a 1.5 steals per game, 10 assists together, and shooting the ball at a 44% from overall from the field goal range and 37% from 3. I actually think that 3-point percentage is going to come up a little bit more. They're averaging 8 rebounds together as a backcourt. This is another backcourt that I do love, especially offensively. I look at what they lack defensively sometimes and wonder how this team is how that team is going to stand up if they face larger backcourts that have backcourts that can go two ways. For example, if I had to bet on the Memphis Grizzlies backcourt versus the Portland Trailblazers backcourt in a series, I'm going to go with the Memphis Grizzlies every single time because of the intensity level that they play up with and that's maintained on both sides of the ball, usually for this team. Now, we know the Portland Trailblazers, number 1 team in the Western Conference as of right now, so you can't argue with what they do in the winning column. They're 10-4 so far in the season with one of the best point differentials in the league as well with what they're able to do. But again, that's overall as a team. As a backcourt, I still think you have to list the Portland Trailblazers there because of what they've been able to do so far this season and the fact that Dame time seems like it's back and fully engaged. And so when you have Dame Lillard playing at the level that we know that he can play with, being that near, I don't want to say necessarily MVP level, but playing at a damn good level, we have still yet to see Gary Payton II make his return and what he could mean for this team, especially defensively in that backcourt as well. But at least right now, looking at Anthony Simons, looking at Dame Lillard, they're absolutely one of the best and most high-octane scoring offenses in the NBA so far this season. And then you have Trae Young and DeJounte Murray, who I have coming in at 4th. And the thing that keeps them from being higher on the list, they are averaging almost 50 points combined as a backcourt, 41% shooting from the field, 31% from three-point range, 9.5 rebounds a game together. But they blow the other teams completely out the water when it comes to assists, and that's what you expected with having 2 players that have played point guard and had the ball ran through them. That's 17 assists per game from the 2 of them. And they average 3 steals per game, but 2.5 of those steals per game come from DeJounte Murray alone. This is a backcourt where I don't necessarily trust the two-way ability of this backcourt only because of Trae Young, not DeJounte. DeJounte Murray is doing everything that you want DeJounte Murray and that you expect DeJounte Murray to be. But when you look at kind of their splits when they're on the court together, while the raw numbers and the raw stats look pretty good, their splits when they're playing on the court together leave a lot to be desired. So that fit, I think, is going to come along as the season progresses and things like that. I definitely think that's going to come along. But, you know, that's the one thing holding this team from being above some of the other ones, even though their numbers are really, really good so far this season. They have the Hawks at 9-5, what they're doing. But I really look at this team and saying that this is really going to come down to, in my opinion, on once Trae Young or DeJounte learn or start playing better without the ball. There are some times where Trae Young, I think more specifically, when he doesn't have the ball in his hands, right, is not as effective playing off the ball as DeJounte Murray can be. But I do still think DeJounte Murray's kind of better running that offense with the ball in his hands, even though Trae Young is averaging about 2 more assists per game than he does. But as this backcourt continues to figure it out, I definitely think that, you know, they can rise on this list for sure. But I do think that they have the biggest defensive liability, mainly just because of Trae Young himself. But overall, outside of that, I still look at this team and like, this is a hell of a backcourt. This is definitely one of the best backcourts in the NBA. I really don't know who would disagree with that, but that's the top four. And you're looking at the top five to just round it out and make it what you usually see as far as who's the next backcourt up in the league. Would I give it to Steph and Klay? I don't know. For me, it's hard for me to give stuff to Steph and Klay just because of how disappointing their season has been so far this season. And, as much as it's a team sport and team game, results still make it. The record still has to play a part in it, at least for me. The Golden State Warriors right now would be the 11th seed if the season were to end today. That is outside even the play-in. So it's kind of hard for me to give their backcourt over some of these other backcourts that have their team in the playoffs. So I'm going to have to pick. If I had to pick the fifth best backcourt in the league, I think I'm going to go to the Phoenix Suns. I think because if you look at their record, I think the record being the differentiating factor in that, Phoenix Suns 8-5 on the season, so still kind of not what you expected coming into the season for them, but it's good enough for fourth in the Western Conference. Still a very potent backcourt as well. Some questions about like Chris Paul's play at times and if he's on a decline or not. But outside of that, you still have to look at this team as being one of those teams that can definitely get some things done. Like Chris Paul, so far in the season, just the scoring keeps. I don't think in my right mind I can give it to the Phoenix Suns. I just don't think that I can do. I don't think I can do that. When you look at Chris Paul so far this season, averaging only 9.5 points per game in 10 games played. We know he's currently out right now with an injury, but I don't think I can give. You know what? I think I have to revise it. I don't think I can give the fifth best backcourt to the Phoenix Suns anymore. Man, wow. I don't know, guys. You guys let me know. Who do you think? Let's just turn it over. For the fifth best backcourt in the NBA, what team are you giving it to? You have the Philadelphia 76ers backcourt with James Harden, Tyrese Maxey on that list. They can definitely be on there. I don't really know. I don't know who I get. I think by default, I don't know, man. And even that Milwaukee Bucks backcourt is just so banged up. I don't know. You know what? I'm at a loss for words for right now. Who do you think has been the fifth best backcourt in the NBA or the best backcourt overall? Do you agree, disagree with my list? Let me know all that down below. But that is it for me for today. Make sure you can follow me at CEO Haize, the CEO Haize. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, NBA Central Show at gmail.com. But that is it for me for today. Let me know what you guys think is the fifth best backcourt in the NBA so far up to this point in the season. Love you guys. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Breaks Media.